Good evening. Welcome to the first of hopefully many deck designs and deck profile videos that I'm looking to make here on this channel. For my first, I figured I'd go with a character that is starting to pick up a little bit of chatter with the release of Jetburn, that being one Hitoshi Shinso. Shinso, as you can see, is a 7-hander with 19 vitality, or health, I guess I should use more modern terms. I'm older than some, but not as old as most. He's got a really fun first form here. You name an attack zone, which is your high, mid, or low, and any attacks that match that zone for the rest of this turn get +2 speed. First form, for those who may not know or may be confused, this is the first thing you would do after your draw step before you play a card. Forms are anytime you could play a card during your turn or activate a form effect. First form means that just has to be the first one that you do during that turn. Then he's got a fun little response here. Once per turn, after your rival's attack resolves, reveal a card in their hand at random. They must play that card as their next form or discard it. So kind of leaning into his brainwashing ability and getting to play a little bit of mind games with your opponent. Now the reason that Shinso might be getting onto more people's radar, thanks to Jetburn, is the Haunting of Hitoshi Shinso, which is an ultra rare from Jetburn. It's got two fun, really fun enhances on it. Enhance, this attack gains stun 2, but your rival may flip 2 foundations to cancel this effect. Also enhance, you may draw 2 cards, or your rival may discard 1 card to cancel this effect. And the reason it's gaining traction is because of this Shinso Echo response, which means as long as your character is Hitoshi Shinso, you can gain access to that Echo response, which is after the attack resolves, you may discard 1 momentum to play it again from your card pool. So basically, this attack turns into 2 attacks. This can turn into a stun 4, or a draw 4, or your rival has to give up a lot of ground in order to stop you from doing that. And one thing that I really thought would be really cool to play with Shinso is with another Echo attack, Velocity Rush, which is a common from Jetburn, also an Echo, and if it's blocked, your next attack can get 1 speed. If it's not blocked, your next attack can get 1 damage. So I love those effects that kind of give your opponent a choice between the lesser of 2 evils, what they want to deal with. That's just my playstyle. And I thought, with Void running the Echo attacks, probably one of the best cards that a lot of people aren't really thinking about is Borrowed Goods, because it combos with a face down. So after an Echo ability resolves and you play the attack again, after that attack then resolves, you have to turn it face down in your card pool. Well, with Borrowed Goods, you combo with a face down, so as long as the preceding card in your card pool is a face down card, you gain access to the combo enhance of your rival just discards a card. So if you do Haunting of Hitoshi Shinso and they don't want you to draw 2, they have to discard 1. Then you Echo. If they still don't want you to draw 2, they discard a second one. And then that's not including any times they try to block this 6 damage move. And just with Borrowed Goods, you can just shred your opponent's hand really well. And then it's Enhance. Sorry, I'm still new at this. It's Enhance, your rival discards 1 momentum, and if they did, you add the top card of your deck to your momentum. So then that ability, even if you don't do the Enhance to combo, can fuel future Echoes in Velocity Rush and Haunting of Hitoshi Shinso. So this card not only combos after your Echoes, but it also combos into your Echoes, and I think that kind of flow is a really neat and interesting way that Shinso can play. And then, of course, Velocity Rush and Alleyway Ambush, or Haunting of Hitoshi Shinso, getting ahead of myself, are all high attacks, so you can give them all 2 speed by using your first form and declaring high attack. So instead of a 3 high for 6, this is a 5 high for 6. Then the next one's a 5 high for 6. And then Borrowed Goods, it's a 3 mid for 4, unless you use some of the foundations that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. To round this out, I got Off Guard Punch. It's got Shinso on it. It's got an enhance that you can change its zone, and your next attack gets 2 damage. So if you declare high with Shinso's form, and it gets 2 speed, it's a 4 high for 5, and then you can use the Shinso enhance to make it, say, a mid or a low, to try to either catch your opponent off guard with a block they might not be holding, or if you're not planning on doing a lot of zone changing, you could try to waste mid blocks for borrowed goods. And then if your rival doesn't block it, they discard a card as another enhance. So another way to try to give your opponent the choice of, block it or don't and lose a card anyway. So it's either clog the card pool or shred the hand. And again, with the Shinso enhance, if they're expecting you to play a bunch of highs and they don't hold any lows, you can then change it to low, and if they don't half block it with a mid block, you shred a card out of their hand anyway. Because that's kind of the cool thing about his form. You can declare a zone, like high. All high attacks get 2 speed. If you have a mid attack and then you make it high, it gets a 2 speed. If you have a high attack, it gets a 2 speed, and then you change the zone, it still keeps that 2 speed. So you're allowed to play some zone change-ups, which I think is really, really fun. I added electromagnetic bullets, because a 5 high for 6 flash is pretty fun on a 4-check, and if your opponent's not ready to deal with it, you may just clip them and use it as a good poke. And then alleyway ambush, also a high, so this could be a 6 high for 5, and I like the enhance here, well, it's not an enhance, it's static, but as long as your character has this red UA watermark, which was Crimson Rampage, the second MHA set, and you have at least 5 cards in your card pool, this card ignores progressive difficulty. So if you've got a good hand, and you're allowed to draw a lot with Hitoshi Shinso, or Unexpected Hero, or Calling for Backup, and you draw a lot of attacks, you can use your Echoes, counting as 2 attacks, and then play a bunch more attacks, maybe then set up a few foundations, and then just throw an alleyway ambush to, for lack of a better word, ambush your opponent when they're not expecting it or not prepared to deal with it. So it could be a really cool finisher, or just tack on some extra damage and really just pressure your opponent. I liked throwing Barrier Shield in here, because it's just an amazing defensive action. It doesn't count towards progressive difficulty if you block with it, so you clip some of these high attacks, you block on this +2, and it doesn't count towards progressive difficulty for the rest of the turn. Or most people just use it for the enhance, you remove it, reduces attack speed to 0, and your next card you play gets Breaker 2. Which is really good on defense, because then it either shuts your opponent's turn down pretty hard, or forces them to commit more resources so that they go into your turn more committed out. For foundations, you got some basic zeros here. Some speed control with Gotcha and Easily Excited. The first being, of course, a decent piece of anti-stun, because you can give -1 speed if it's committed. Easily Excited gives your attack +1 speed. And Taunt, but you're not really going to be worrying about that right now. Keeping Area Safe is just some good anti-stun. Mediator's good for speed hate, and if you've already played, like, say, your Barrier Shield during your opponent's turn, it's an additional draw card on that -3 speed, which can come in real handy, especially considering you're a 7-hander with only 19 health. Calling for Backup's good for drawing. Helping Tomura, if a card is added to your momentum, add this card to your momentum, so it's all about fueling the Velocity Rush and the Haunting of Hitoshi Shinso. I don't think anything else really here has, a momentum out, but that's going to be your main source of just turning 1 attack into 2. Red Right's the coolest. I find that Void sometimes deals, or has trouble with gaining damage, so Red Right's the coolest, is playable while committed, and it just flips for +2 damage. Pretty simple. Think Fast. Now this is a really fun card to play when you're dealing with these zone change mechanics, because you can declare high, mid, or low with Shinso, and then if you've got a Think Fast on your board, any attack can be that zone. So even if you went all highs the last time, if your opponent's like, okay, I'm going to hold all high blocks, you've got to Think Fast, you're like, okay, now I'll just make them all lows. Except for electromagnetic bullets, because it's a flash. But it's really cool, and you have to commit a foundation to do it. So cards like Red Ride's the coolest, playable while committed. Gotcha can give your attack an additional speed, so you can get +3 speed on these attacks. And then just for free, if you've changed the zone of the attack, it gets a free 1 speed, 1 damage. So you can stack 4 speed with Shinso, Gotcha, and Think Fast. and 1 damage, so, making Hitoshi Shinso a 7 high for 7 that can gain stun 2 or draw you 2 cards makes that really threatening. Heroic Lineage, after your attack gets a speed bonus, it gets 2 damage, pretty standard, or if your rival's attack receives a damage bonus, it gets minus speed. Pretty good offense and defense balance. I love Unexpected Hero, because if you're shredding your opponent's hand, you can just commit it to draw a card, keep your strings going, or if you've already ran your opponent out of cards, you can flip it to give your attack minus 3 speed, which, if they're out of cards, they're not going to be blocking, and plus 3 damage. So you're really stacking all that damage on. So say you Hitoshi Shinso, a Haunting of Hitoshi Shinso, you try to make them discard cards so that you don't draw 2, you echo, you do it again. Either you're going to get to stock up your cards in your hand and just keep going, or you'll run out of cards, and Unexpected Hero can just be 3 free damage on any one of your moves that can come in and kill. I love Spooky, just because it's just fun to say, and it's really good for if your opponent's trying to put a whole lot of speed on one thing, or a whole lot of damage on one thing, you can just flip it and really mess with their day. Dropping in from above, most of our attacks are high, or can become high, so it's just a little bit of extra damage. But also, if you don't want to commit it, your first attack was not blocked, your attack just gets a free damage. So if you throw something like Velocity Rush at the first, and your opponent doesn't block it, cool, your next attack gets 1 damage, and your attacks for the rest of the turn can get an additional free damage, which you can then maybe say throw an alleyway ambush at the end of a string and just give it a free plus 2 damage for it being a high attack. Then we got Force Quirk activation. This is just another way to rip a momentum real quick if you need it from your discard pile. Or you can just destroy it to choose an enhance ability on a rival foundation, and if they don't get to play that ability as their next enhance, they destroy the foundation. This is really cool for targeting down effects like, say, Red Riot's the coolest. You choose the Deadlock enhance. Well, your opponent can't play the Deadlock enhance if you're not in Deadlock, so they just lose a foundation. But mostly it's for the generating of momentum. And then the last card I have here is Elasticity. You flip it after an attack is blocked. The next attack will get plus 3 or minus 3 damage. Again, if you run your opponent out of cards in their hand, then you flip this, your next attack just gets 3 free damage, and you can really stack this on with Elasticity, Unexpected Hero. That's 6 free damage for just your opponent having no cards in their hand, and it's just free. Also, a little bit of stun hate. After your rival plays a stun ability, you cancel it, and then you get the top card of your deck to your momentum, fueling your echoes. Do I think this deck's perfect? Absolutely not. But the point of this whole channel and everything is to maybe put some ideas in people's heads, some things that maybe they hadn't thought of yet, or maybe even different ways of looking at a character that they either haven't put a lot of thought in or were curious about and kind of maybe didn't know where to start. I think this is a really fun deck idea. Obviously, it could probably use a lot of work. I am no Tim Keefe or Tamron Cardwell, but I love building decks, I love building fun decks, and I think this is a really good way to start if you're wanting to look at Hitoshi Shinso off the Void deck. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.